Turn right onto Dover Road. Turn right onto Dover Road. Continue for 1.5 miles. In 1/4 mile, keep right to continue towards Tons Lane, A355. Keep right. In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the first exit onto the M4 slip road to London, Heathrow Airport. In a quarter of a mile, merge onto M4. Continue on M4 for 5 miles.
Announced he would be handing over 28 Soviet-era MiG-29 jets to the Americans, who would then presumably hand them over to Ukraine.
We are ready to give all of our fleet to Ramstein, but we are not ready to make any moves on our own because, as I said, we are not party to the war.
Now, overnight, that offer was withdrawn by the Pentagon. The fear is that it would lead to a significant escalation in the war if one of the jets were to attack Russian positions. The other big announcement from yesterday, the US would ban import of all Russian oil and gas with immediate effect. President Joe Biden.
This is a step that we're taking to inflict further pain on people, but there will be cost as well here in the United States. I said I would level with the American people from the beginning, and when I first spoke to this, I said defending freedom is going to cost. It's going to cost us as well in the United States.
We are following suit that the complete ban from our end won't come in place until the end of this year.
Theo Usherwood reporting. We'll look more on the oil aspect in a few minutes' time with Juliet Davenport, who's Vice President of the Energy Institute. But let's look at the military side. And those MPs, and I don't want to take anything away from President Zelensky's address, and it was deserving of a standing ovation, 100%. But I wonder how some of those MPs feel. Because they are the ones who have consistently voted against increasing defence spending, or for defence cuts. As we just heard, the army now is at 82,000. That's Twickenham Rugby Stadium. Exactly, 82. That's the British Army. Again, I'm not for one moment denuding the brave blokes and women who serve it. But are we now paying the price for this extraordinarily lackadaisical, misguided, muddled thinking by many of those MPs who cheer Zelensky to the echo, but every chance they can, they cut our defence budget? Let's speak to an expert, General Richard Dannett, Chief of General Staff for the British Army, joins me now. Do you see a degree of hypocrisy yesterday, Lord Dannett? Good morning.
Nick, good morning. Well, what we're seeing, and you're reporting is absolutely right. 2010, the army was 102,000 strong. Now I left I finished until the army in 2009, and it's come down to 82,000. Now, this is a reflection of a number of things.
In 2 miles, at junction 4B, exit towards M3, M23.
For expensive fast jets to carry his truck program, all of which is very good in its own right. Unfortunately, we've been hugely exposed by what's happened in Ukraine, and our response to it was very, very limited.
Talking about that exposure in Ukraine, Bogdan, you may be aware Jacob Rees-Mogg has suggested Vladimir Putin gets the impression Britain's security services, quotes, lack grip and backbone. This is after a series of stories where MI5, MI6, GCHQ have extolled the virtues of diversity, inclusion, and in some instances telling staff they should focus on that. Do you concur with Jacob Rees-Mogg?
Well, let's face it, business of war, as we've seen on our television screens over the last 2 or 3 weeks, is nasty, brutish, bloody, and horrible. Frankly, you've got to have soldiers, sailors, airmen, marines, for that matter, who are prepared to absolutely get stuck in that awful environment. So these other things are important in life, but when it comes to it, absolutely got to focus on being well-trained, well-led, disciplined, motivated, and prepared to get stuck in the most awful of environments. So let's leave the other stuff to one side. Jacob Rees-Mogg can say what he likes, but frankly, what we've got to show is that this country is determined, it's prepared to support our allies, and that there is a cost to that. We've got to recognise there's a cost and be prepared to invest more. We've made some ridiculous decisions as far as our land warfare capability is concerned in recent years. We've got to reverse those, and I'm afraid part of the cost, but only seeing energy prices go up across the land, actually more money has got to go into defence.
As a military expert, you'll be aware Poland offered its fleet of MiG-29 fighter jets to hand over to Ukraine. The Pentagon have blocked that. Was that correct, Lord Dannett, to block that?
Well, it's a difficult one. I mean, I think everybody quite rightly is trying not to give Putin the excuse to say that we have escalated the war. It's awful and facilitates to what 20 or so Polish MiG fighters to go to Ukraine was actually quite sensible. But I can see how the Americans may well have been concerned and pulled back from an escalation point of view. The tragedy is Ukraine is fighting the fight for itself, but actually, of course, it's also fighting the fight for ourselves. The Ukrainians are standing up for democracy, the rule of law, and a more liberal way of life for themselves, but for us too. It's a very fine balance between supporting them and not escalating and getting the chance, if he becomes successful in Ukraine, and that's a big if, of then rolling his forces into other countries. Belarus is a given, obviously, but Moldova, and then you start thinking about Romania, Poland, and goodness sake, where do you go after that?
Finally, what would you say to the 19-year-old Coldstream Guardsman who's abandoned his post to go on a one-way ticket to Ukraine to fight the Russians? He is, of course, Lord Dannett, AWOL.
I would tell him to come back straight away. Soldiers are, if they're one thing, they're disciplined. That is an act of discipline. Actually, this young man it's potentially internationally very damaging. If that young man gets captured by the Russians, he can be reported as being a British soldier into Ukraine. Now, the fact he's gone on his own, it may be the truth, but of course, propaganda can say.
Yes, we were battling and the line has gone there. I'm grateful to you, General Lord Richard Dannett. You served as Chief of the General Staff. Thank you for the British Army when it was fairly healthier and complement than it is now. Now let's get to the oil aspect, and I understand, well, let's turn to an expert. The US is moving almost overnight, but here in the UK, it will take until the end of the year to effectively switch off the supply of Russian oil. Juliet Davenport is Vice President of the Energy Institute, founder and director of UK's first renewable energy company, Good Energy, joins me now. Why do you imagine the delay? Good morning to you.
Well, the delay will be to unwind the contracts that are already in place. So despite the fact that we're in this situation with Ukraine, we've still got legally binding contracts.
But they would have in US, surely, Juliet, and they're doing it within 45 days. It's going to take us the thick end of eight months.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the difference between the US has made that decision that they want to cut that back. They've obviously got the powers that they could do that more quickly. Our government has decided that we haven't got those powers and aren't doing that as a result.
What is the impact going to be for my listeners when they go to the pumps and they need the diesel or the petrol?
So I expect that we'll already be seeing the anticipation of these cutbacks coming through in the price at the pumps today, so it will be going up. I've just been looking at the wholesale prices. They've already started to anticipate this. I mean, to be honest, we've been on an upward trajectory ever since Putin moved into so across the border into Ukraine. So this started to move in anticipation. It continues to move up, but we're not seeing it top out yet.
When do you imagine it will, and when might it hit £2 a litre?
That I'm really sorry, Nina. I think I can't forecast.
In 300 yards, at junction 4B, exit towards M3, M23.
Is concerned, needs to keep an eye and start to consider whether they can cut back on unnecessary journeys.
Lastly, the European Union says it wants to reduce its dependency on Russian oil before 2030. Again, why is it taking them so long?
So there's going to be
Exit at junction 4B, then keep right at the fork.
contracts that were already in place, particularly with companies like Gazprom. Then there's going to be the longer term investment that we mean that there'll be a structural shift, so we won't be sort of under Putin's thumb again in the future. And I think that he has waited. He's been very clever and waited. He spiked the energy prices last year and waited till we came back into recovery and everybody's back out of their houses, because
Keep right at the fork.
it was reduce our overall energy demand and bring the energy prices down.
Juliet Davenport, Vice President of the Energy Institute, founder of Good Energy. Thank you for that. You
Continue on M25 south for 1.5 miles.
cut so much, and also coming up after the news, a full report into the serial bully and serial liar.
Difference of opinion is of the essence of politics.
We expressed it, though. John Burke, shamed by that report. 7:15 LBC News headlines are read by Simon Conway.
The Pentagon has rejected a plan from Poland to give its fighter jets to Ukraine via a US airbase in Germany over fears it could expand the war. Russia has promised to pause fighting in several Ukrainian cities this morning to allow civilians to leave via safe corridors. Coca-Cola, Starbucks and McDonald's have all suspended activity in Russia. LBC weather, wet and windy in the west, dry further east, a high of 13 degrees.
LBC travel line to our web, long delays on the A2 all the way from the M25 junction to the Danson interchange. That's going westbound, and it's all down to an accident where one lane is closed. In East Dulwich, it's very busy on the South Circular Road in both directions because of the roadworks, and also delays on the Hampton Court Bridge. That's A309 going northbound because of the works on the bridge where only one lane is open. On the train, Southern services are suspended still between Purley and Caterham. Chiltern Railway's
In a quarter of a mile, at junction 14, use the left 2 lanes to take the A3113 exit to Heathrow Airport.
between Rickmansworth and Amersham and Rickmansworth and Chesham.
This is LBC.
I race for life for my mum, who was diagnosed with bowel cancer.
I race for life for my best friend, who we lost to.
Use the left 2 lanes to exit at junction 14, then keep right.
Prostate cancer.
I race for life for everyone facing cancer.
Who will you race for life for? Raise money.
Keep right.
Cancer research. Sign up to your local event at raceforlife.org. And together, we will beat cancer.
Continue for half a mile.
Hurry now. 0345 6060 973 LBC.
There's no better feeling than finally ticking something big off your to-do list. And that's how it feels to sell your car with Motorway. Their trusted dealers compete to give you the best price, meaning you could...
In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the first exit onto Airport Way, A3113.
Then pick your car up from home for free. This is the way. This is the Motorway. And for your chance to win £1,000, head to lbc.co.uk. Many eggs, bunch of flour, thing of milk, 5 butter, lots of sugar, some baking powder, a bit of zest, then cherries, jam, cream, splash here, dash there, whip it, oven it, ta-da! Not a cake. Amounts matter, like how much, how long, and when. Getting business right means getting...
quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the second exit onto Southern Perimeter Road. Exit the roundabout onto Southern Perimeter Road. In 200 yards, at Western Perimeter Road roundabout, take the second exit and stay on Southern Perimeter Road. Exit the roundabout onto Southern Perimeter Road. Continue on Southern Perimeter Road for 1.5 miles. In 1/4 of a mile, at the roundabout, take the third exit onto Beacon Road. Exit the roundabout onto Beacon Road. In 100 yards, at the roundabout, take the second exit onto Stanwell Road. Exit the roundabout onto Stanwell Road. In a quarter of a mile, turn right onto Great Southwest Road, A30. Turn right onto Great Southwest Road, A30. In a quarter of a mile, at Clockhouse Roundabout, take the first exit onto Staines Road, A315. In 200 yards, turn left onto Hatton Road. Turn left onto Hatton Road. Turn left onto Staines Road, A315. In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, continue straight to stay on Staines Road, A315. quarter of a mile, turn right onto Shaftesbury Avenue. Take the next right onto Shaftesbury Avenue, then turn left onto Roslin Avenue. Take the next left onto Roslin Avenue.